Hello then, thank you for joining us from wherever you are. We're live from our studios here in Kokomlemle on digital address GA0992539. Our top stories this hour. Less than 24 hours to the mid-year review and supplementary budget will tell you how many MPs will be allowed to attend as we forecast the key areas of interest in this year's budget. Also coming up, opposition NDC joins in calls for the immediate dismissal of Special Development Initiative Minister as they allege 4 suspects arrested in connection also with the murder of a 28-year-old in Banda have been released. More as the Electoral Commission also says it is unfortunate flag bearer John Mahama's tour of the registration centers cut short because of non-adherence to COVID-19 protocols. Also coming up, no fiscal impact assessment submitted over a year as Ministry of Finance fails to review how much it cost the state in granting tax waivers to U.S. oil firm EXXONMOBIL. More as our investigative journalists explore why EXXONMOBIL was granted immunity under the Foreign Transaction Act, which imposes restrictions on transfer of currencies abroad. Those are our top stories this hour. We're live on your digital television for free. We're also on DSTV if you are a subscriber. We're on channel 421 and on GoTV channel 144. Remember, we're streaming live. If you like to watch us on the internet, we are on YouTube. My name is Gifty Andopia. This is The Pulse. Please be my guest. Let's go through the details of those stories, shall we? A government was required by law to submit a fiscal impact assessment on the EXXONMOBIL petroleum agreement before Parliament approved the deal. But a year after the deal was ratified, the Finance Ministry has yet to comply with the Public Financial Management Act, which requires the ministry to disclose how much the tax waivers and exemptions granted the U.S. oil giant cost the state. JoyNews' Kwetinati has also been exploring why EXXONMOBIL was granted immunity under the Foreign Transaction Act, which imposes restrictions on transfer of currencies abroad.
In the official report of parliamentary debate on 3rd April 2019, the government of Ghana assured the Parliamentary Select Committee on Finance that the fiscal impact assessment on the EXXONMOBIL petroleum agreement to explore oil in Ghana's deep waters would be submitted to the House. This is a requirement under the Public Financial Management Act 2016. The document was expected to provide an insight into how much EXXONMOBIL's tax waivers and exemptions under the agreement is costing the state. The law provides that, quote, any legislation to be laid before Parliament or proposal submitted for the approval of Parliament shall be accompanied by a fiscal impact analysis stating the estimated effect on revenues and expenditures for the financial year in which the legislation or proposal is expected to come into effect. The fiscal impact analysis will determine the benefits the country will derive from the agreement and how this relief would impact the revenue of the country. But JoyNews checks have revealed government has failed to submit the fiscal impact assessment on the agreement. Former Deputy Finance Minister and member of the Finance Committee in Parliament, Ato Forson, confirms to JoyNews the agreement was approved without this critical report. He's however disappointed that for over a year now, the government is dragging its feet and has still not remedied this breach of the law.
The government of Ghana promised us that they are going to cost them and bring them to Parliament for approval. It will surprise you to know that indeed a year now, government of Ghana had failed to provide to us how much is going to cost the taxpayer in terms of tax exemptions that we are granting.
But Vice Chairman of the Energy Committee, George Duker, defends government, arguing that such delays are characteristic of how Parliament works when it comes to ratifying agreements.
We just resumed, and at the appropriate time when we get to know the details. Yes, you know, some of these things. Yesterday I was in Parliament and I was having a discussion with a friend, and they said they came to Parliament to discuss 2016 audit report. I mean, PAC report 2016. It's not 2017. So yes, it could be a year, but I believe as far as this industry is concerned, I would say that we're still within time. Yes, it's good. You are monitoring, you're tracking.
EXXONMOBIL Exploration and Production Ghana Limited, according to the agreement, is to explore its deep water Cape 3 Points block offshore for 25 years if commercial discovery is made.
This day has been a good day in the sense that we have brought into our oil space a company with the strength, the reputation and competence. And that nameplate, EXXONMOBIL, in our oil and gas exploration space will indeed give us a lot of credit in the industry.
We are excited to bring our technology, and as you said, you know, we have a unique place on that, and we are looking forward to working here, to opening an office here, to working with you to hopefully find and have success in this ultra deep water.
It's a good day for Ghana, and I hope it's going to be a good day for Exxon. It's been a relatively tortuous road to bring you to Ghana, but you're here. And I want to welcome you very warmly.
Government came under a backlash from civil society groups, including the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, over this deal. They sounded the alarm because open competitive bidding, which is the recommendation of the Petroleum Exploration and Production Act 2016, was not followed. This is a position the former Deputy Finance Minister, Ato Forson, has supported in the past. But chief among the worries of the former Deputy Finance Minister is a blank check of waivers and exemptions brought to Parliament a year ago. Mr. Forson places the cost of waivers and exemptions at billions of dollars based on discussions with Finance Ministry officials.
The back of the envelope calculation that we have done is that this is going to be in billions of dollars, unfortunately, but it has not been costed, so we're still waiting.
What would these waivers and exemptions mean for oil-producing communities which have been anticipating the entry of such oil giants to improve their livelihoods? The Cape 3 Points community is the epicenter of Ghana's offshore oil exploration activity. I am on my way there. The roads leading to this community are among the worst in the country. They are dusty, bumpy, and narrow. Motorists spend hours navigating this road. Nana Kumjahine is a Jasahine of Akode. He says post-harvest losses are common here as a result of the bad roads.
Enough during Kufuor era. We want to him even the post on the black front page of Daily Graphic that from Sangro to Akode Road has given to contract. So since Kufuor time, government after government, we have in fact we have pushed even this Kufuor this government. We are one that tries. Kufuor during the first campaign, during the first time when he was doing the campaign, he came to Akode here. And if you rather told us the basket of the road that whenever you get the chance, you do the road for us. Up to now, nothing has happened on that.
The plight of these fishing communities is worsened when the rains come. Health workers like Regina Amwa says she and her colleagues have to be carried on the backs of male colleagues as they wade through floodwaters to their duty posts. Her main worry, however, is the effect of such poor roads on maternal and infant mortality rates.
When it rains, we the health workers, we find it difficult to go to work. And then our patients here, the community members also find it difficult to visit the clinic because the roads are very, very bad. Somewhere in June, we had an incident where a pregnant woman was visiting the facility, and unfortunately, she fell, and then she was rushed to our facility, and then later on, she was also referred to DISCOF for further management. It's really tough for us. Sometimes we have to remove our footwear, walk in the rains like that. At times too, we have to be carried at the back.
Civic activists and communities of the Cape 3 Points region say there is another vexed issue: the immunity granted EXXONMOBIL under the Foreign Exchange Act 2006. This immunity allows the oil giant to transfer foreign currency out of the country freely without restrictions. Former PIAC chairman Dr. Steve Mantiao claims that this immunity was granted because Bank of Ghana officials were sidelined in negotiating the deal.
The impression was created at the time that EXXONMOBIL was entering into a fresh negotiation. No, it wasn't actually fresh negotiation, but they were continuing with the negotiations that commenced under the previous government. But as I noted earlier, those negotiations ended with no contract, and so they had lapsed. So if EXXONMOBIL was coming back, then it was coming back for fresh negotiations under fresh terms of reference. And so had to be subjected to the new law which had been passed in August 2016, that is the EMP Act, which requires that open competitive bidding becomes the default arrangement for contract negotiation in Ghana. However, the government misled all of us. I mean, the current government, the NPP government, misled Ghanaians into thinking that it was only continuing with the negotiations started by the NDC government, and so there was no need to go through that new default position established under Act 919, which is the open competitive bidding. And so, in constituting the negotiating team for Ghana, government succumbed to demands from EXXONMOBIL to exclude the Bank of Ghana from the renewed negotiation process.
According to the official transcript of Parliament's debate on the agreement, government officials said that the Bank of Ghana had agreed to waive the restrictions for EXXONMOBIL because of the effect on the operations of the company and the potential benefits of oil exploration and production that may accrue to Ghana.
We're zooming into politics right now, but what are your thoughts about that investigative piece put together by Kwete Nati? Well, you can reach us on our social media platforms. Drop us a message. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. You need to air your thoughts. Well, the Electoral Commission has condemned and distanced itself from the shooting incident at the steps to Christ Voter Registration Center at the Owutu-Senya East constituency in the Central Region last Monday. Addressing the media at its Let the Citizens Know series, Deputy Chairman Operations of the EC, Samuel Tete, said the Commission has identified the busing of people as an underlying factor for conflict at registration centers. It follows reports of violence at some registration centers in the country, including the Kaswa incident that involves the Member of Parliament for the area, Mavis Hawa-Kumsin. The EC's Deputy Chairman is asking for perpetrators to be brought to book.
Violence at some registration centers. The Commission has noted with concern some acts of violence which are gradually rearing its ugly head at some centers. So far, we've experienced one or two. The centers are not many, very few. And in some cases, the registration officials are attacked physically or verbally, and applicants are also physically prevented from registering. These acts by political party agents and sympathizers disrupt the registration process, and at times it leads to the closure of the center for the rest of the day till calm is restored. A case in point was the temporary halting of the registration process at the center by name Steps to Christ Preparatory School in Awudete village in the Owutu-Senya East District in the Central Region which occurred on Monday, where firing of gunshots temporarily halted the registration process. However, the police saved the situation and the registration process was continued. We are happy to state that our kids and officials are safe, and the police have started investigations into the incidents. As a commission, we condemn such acts, especially during a civil exercise like the registration of voters, and calls on the security agencies to investigate the issue as a matter of urgency and bring the perpetrators to book to serve as a deterrent to other would-be offenders. And as a reminder, we also, particularly two political party agents, politicians, and any person who wishes to challenge an applicant on the basis of ineligibility must fill a challenge form at the registration center, which will then be submitted to the district registration review committees for a determination as to whether the applicant is qualified to be registered as a voter or not. The political party agents are therefore cautioned against the use of force or violence at all our registration centers to challenge a person's eligibility, since it is an offense to do so. At this juncture, it is important to state for the records that well ahead of the registration exercise, the Commission had an extensive engagement with the security services, especially with the Ghana Police Service. The Commission wrote to the IGP for police presence at all the registration centers. In addition, we wrote to the police for police presence at our regional offices, district offices, as well as our stores. In addition, we submitted the movement plan of the Commission to the security agencies. All these measures were taken in order to ensure the presence of the police at our regional, district, stores, and all registration centers. Notably, it is important to state that the Commission has taken all the necessary steps to ensure that the registration centers are well secured. And that is the reason why we have police presence at all the registration centers. And with the exception of some few centers which have actually experienced violence, all of us can testify that the work of the security agencies keeps on improving day by day. And apart from the security personnel who are permanently stationed at the centers, they also have the mobile or the patrol security teams which are deployed to potential flashpoints to ensure public peace and order. Hence, the peaceful registration at almost all the registration centers that we are experiencing. However, the Commission has also taken note of statements by some organizations or institutions that the EC should be responsible for security, looking at one or two issues which has happened at some centers, especially the one in Ewutusenya East. This is unacceptable to the Commission because security issues are the responsibility of the security agencies. However, we also wish to state that we will continue to work with the security agencies to ensure peace and stability at all registration centers. And this is what we have constantly been doing. And for that matter, it is unfair for these organizations to blame the EC and put at its doorsteps as the body which is responsible for ensuring security at the centers. We reject these statements, we condemn their acts, and we also call on the good people of Ghana to condemn the acts and statements which are being put into the public domain.
Meanwhile, over 9 million prospective voters have been issued their voter IDs at the end of Phase 3 of the ongoing voter registration exercise. According to the EC, as of day 20 of the exercise, 65.7% of the projected figure had registered.
We wish to reiterate, and we've always been saying, that the figures we give to the general public during these briefings are provisional, and it will continue to be until we do proper auditing of all our figures to arrive at the final one. As of day 18, which marked the end of the third phase, a total of 8,246,140 were registered, being the aggregated figure for Phase 1 up to 3. For the first to the third phase, Western region had 506,187, representing 6.1. Central, 764,285, representing 9.1. Greater Accra, 1,819,676, representing 22.1. Volta, 498,189, representing 6%. Eastern, 773,576, representing 9.4. Ashanti, 1,477,501, representing 17.8. Western North, 217,600, representing 2.6. And Bono, 33,243, representing 4.0. OT 163,896, representing 2.0%. I have 157,407, representing 1.9%. And Bono East 284,482, representing 3.4%. Savannah 143,750, representing 1.7%. And Northern 483,665, representing 5.9%. Northeast 134,825, representing 1.6%, and Upper West 214,276, representing 2.6%, and Upper East 275,582, representing 3.3%. So, with the phases from the Phase 1 up to Phase 3, the total number captured was 8,246,140, representing 54.97% of the projected number of 15 million. With the day 4, if we look at from day 1 up to day 20, the first phase, the second phase, the third phase, we have figures for the next 2 days within the fourth phase. And if you add them together, from day 1 up to day 20, the total registered voters for Western is 618,217, representing 6.3%. Central is 916,848, representing 9.3%. Greater Accra, 2,128,515, representing 21.6%. and Volta 587,137, representing 6.0. Eastern, we have 935,296, representing 9.7, and Ashanti 1,773,601, representing 18.0. Western North 263,543, representing 2.7. Bono 394,425, representing 4.0%. NOT 195,552, representing 2.0. I have 187,995, representing 1.9%, and Bono is 338,867, representing 3.4. Savannah is 168,885, representing 1.7, and Northern 584,858, representing 5.9. Northeast is 161,908, representing 1.6. Upper West 262,220, representing 2.7. And the Upper East 342,297, representing 3.5.
As the Electoral Commission there. Also, in the last few hours, the National Democratic Congress has been demanding the arrest of the Minister for Special Development Initiative, Hawa Kumsin, for firing a gun at a voter registration center. Madam Kumsin said she fired the shot because she felt threatened. At a news conference here in Accra today, the NDC's Director of Elections, Elvis Efuye Ankra, described the minister as a gangster.
This case has also been reported to the Kasua Divisional Police, including a video capturing Francis Tete, a known MPP thug, hitting our party's agent's head with a block. Yet, shockingly, the police have refused to act on this evidence till date. The third attack was executed by these same gangsters brought in from Boku by Hawa Kumsin, numbering about 13. Oh, am I? Yeah, on an NDC agent called Prosper at Amuzu, Copper. This very attack was led by Atu Kumsin, the first child of Hawa Kumsin. Not satisfied with our aforementioned attacks, their next stop was the Kasua Newtown electoral area, which happens to be another stronghold of the NDC in Kasua. Nana One, the MPP constituency youth organizer, and a member of the Delta forces that stormed the Ayawaso West Wargon by-elections, led these gangsters of land guards to brutally assault NDC agents, leaving them with deep cutlass wounds on their heads. Again, the case was reported to the Kasua Divisional Police Officer with no arrest or invitation made till date. 2 days before the shooting incident at the Steps to Christ polling station, the MPP thugs, led by Hawa Kumsin, attacked and assaulted our ward coordinator, Abdallah, at the Jomens electoral area. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, it is worth noting that all these violent attacks on our innocent supporters were committed by the same thugs imported from Boku to Kasua by Madam Mavis Hawa Kumsin. The NDC is totally disgusted by the thuggish and criminal shooting incident involving a gang of MPP thugs who were led by Hawa Kumsin, which has received both national and international condemnation, and which have been admitted by the Minister of State herself. We condemn in no uncertain terms such thuggery, sponsored and led by a high-ranking government official and lawmaker who is supposed to uphold the law at all times. Hawa Kumsin has, by this singular criminal act and the many others committed before, and her gang, together with her gang, and all that they've meted out to NDC supporters and innocent Ghanaians in the last couple of weeks, demonstrated that she is a gangster who does not deserve to occupy any public position of trust. And we join the many voices of conscience in our society to demand her immediate dismissal from office and her prosecution for these heinous crimes. In any civilized society, this gangster minister would have been arrested and made to stand prosecution by now. And this is exactly what her appointor, President Akufo-Addo, should have done by now if he had any integrity, honor, and conscience left. But because he's the chief promoter and enabler of the unprecedented culture of lawlessness we are witnessing today, we will not be surprised if Howard Koomson is left off the hook, like the several MPP criminals, such as Double and the Azugu-maxed national security operatives who perpetrated the Ayawaso West Wuogon violence. The MPP's Delta Force, who attacked a court of competent jurisdiction in broad daylight, etc. All these people have been shielded from prosecution and punishment by no other person than President Nana Akufo-Addo.
Well, in the last few minutes, there have been 3 different statements. We'll talk to you about that. But today, the NDC's Director of Elections, Elvis Efuyankra, who you just heard, also described the minister as a gangster. And I'm going to just take you through some of the statements and what they say. Like I said, we have the Ghana Bar Association issuing a statement. We have the Christian Council of Ghana issuing a statement. They, by the way, have been calling for the dismissal of Madam Howard Koomson if she does not resign herself. I also have a statement from CODEO, Coalition of Domestic Election Observers. So let me quickly take you through what CODEO has been finding on the ground. They are observers and they have been on the ground. So let's quickly go through to the findings. In the findings of the statement they've just released, by the way, it's a fully packed document, 2-page document. Obviously, we don't have all of the time. But take a look at the findings. It says an analysis of observer report indicates that the registration exercise was generally conducted in accordance with relevant electoral rules. There were, however, some recorded challenges relating to the various aspects of the process, including performance of the BVR kits, which is an issue which has come up, the availability of hand-washing facility, which is observance of COVID-19 protocols, and the conduct of stakeholders, including political party agents, registration officials, and registration applicants, among others. So the CODEO then goes on to highlight the key findings below, and it gives you details of what they found there. Including the Election Security Task Force and indeed all the stakeholders, they're looking to bring their attention to all of these people, the challenges that they observed, and how they can further improve the conduct and security of the registration processes. Like I said, it's a condensed document, a lot of information there. See if we can go through some of the conclusions that they put there. Let's just take you quickly through that. It's still a lot of information, but it says here that CODEO strongly condemns all reported incidents of violence at registration centers, including the latest development in the Ewutu-Senya East constituency on Monday, July 20, 2020, as well as the violent incident at Banda constituency, which resulted in the unfortunate loss of the life of one person. CODEO is urging the security agencies to step up efforts to bring all perpetrators of violence to book as soon as possible to serve as a deterrence to others. So the CODEO has a message for the political parties. It is urging the political parties, talk about the NPP, the NDC, to check the conduct of their agents that they deploy to the registration centers. So let's take 2 or 3 of the bullet points there. CODEO also condemns the presence of all unauthorized, repetition of words, unauthorized persons at registration centers. And it is reminding the general public that according to the registration rules, no person is supposed to be present at a registration center unless that person is a registration official or an accredited party agent. Next, CODEO is entreating registered voters to guarantee for only persons who they are sure to be eligible for registration under the laws of Ghana, because you find that most of the time it's all about people saying that this person doesn't belong here, that person doesn't belong here, which generates into all of these violent situations. So finally, I take the final point there. CODEO, whilst it commends registration officials for generally conducting themselves well, the coalition also urges all of the officials to be diligent. CODEO commends the EC for responding to some of the issues. So that's a statement coming from CODEO. But like I said, there has also been a statement from the Ghana Bar Association, and in that statement they also highlight what happened in Banda as well as what happened also in Kaswa. We also have a statement from the Ghana Christian Council, and they of course have been calling for the dismissal of Madam Hawa Kumse. This is your election headquarters. Welcome back to the show. Many thanks for staying with us. Now, when Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta arrives in Parliament tomorrow to present the country's mid-year budget review, the entire nation will be glued, waiting on him to roll out his measures to deal with the slump in the economy, fueled mainly by the coronavirus pandemic. Businesses have gone down. Many have lost their jobs. Entire industries and tourism, showbiz, even church activities have been hit hard. Simply put, the country's revenue flows have dwindled, whilst expenditure has just gone up as government doles out more relief money to electricity and water consumers, support for vulnerable groups as well, among others. How will Mr. Ofori-Atta shore up the revenues and reduce the expenditure to bring the economy to some stability? And that's his headache as finance minister. But whether he gets it right or wrong, you and I will be at the receiving end. Mind you, we're in an election year, and whatever decisions he makes tomorrow will have that firmly at the back of his mind. On the pulse today, we have put together all the experts to help us make sense of what's happening around us and how tomorrow's review will affect each one of us. We have experts in health, education, social protection, and the economy. We'll also take you to the streets and into Parliament for perspectives from there. A packed show here for you. First, though, a report by Joseph Akable looking ahead to the review.
Ghana, like many other nations on the globe, has been badly hit by the fast-spreading COVID-19. Restrictions were imposed to contain the spread of the virus, with people urged to remain in their homes. Making ends meet became extremely difficult. Various sectors of the economy suffered as a result, with players calling on government to intervene. The aviation and the tourism industry were badly hit.
It has the potential to put a lot of hoteliers out of business.
Really?
It has the potential to collapse businesses.
Can you explain to me why?
You see, the hotels thrive on occupancy. We thrive on guests coming from outside and inside as well to lodge at their place, so charge them room rates. And then they also eat food, they drink, and for some recreational purposes too, they use your spa, your swimming pool, and so on. Now, so when these guests are cut off, then the oxygen that feeds the business is also truncated.
Yes, airlines, tour operators, and everybody is telling us the impact that they are facing in their subsector, if I should put it that way. And what we are trying to do with the data is to put it together and then present it to the Ministry of Finance, central government, on ways that we can mitigate. But so far the situation looks pretty bad. I mean, we've had load factors on airlines dropping to beyond below 40%. It used to be 60, 70. Hotels are telling us that the occupancy is dropping from around 65 to 70 to 20% and all that.
Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is concerned.
We've cut down, maybe if you look at our budget for travel and seminars and whatever, of some 93 to 43, maybe it was about 200, or maybe $330 million CDs. I think we've spent about 93 million. Anyhow, we have about 140 million CDs left, of which we are not going to use much. So you begin to see what type of savings you have if we were to digitize the economy so that we can do much more together and also get our educational system.
The mid-year review and supplementary budgets expected to address some of these challenges.
We as a country, seeing what we have been able to do these 6 months compared to our neighboring countries, is really to sit up and say, okay, how do we even build this resilience to be stronger? And I think we should do something about digitalizing the whole economy, such that access to data is much cheaper, that given obviously an online system for education is now much clearer to us, and that's the infrastructure we must build. Look at our healthcare system and the president bold move for Agenda 88 or 100 hospitals or so that we have to do to tackle some real intractable problems that we have. We don't have unemployment benefits in a system like that, so now it comes front and center as to what we do about that.
Is it something that you consider honorable?
Yeah, I think all of those things for a responsible society should have them. And maybe this is a time to make the bold move for things of that nature, so that, you know, everyone is taken care of. And an incidence of something like this, the issue of unemployment, etc., would have been catered for.
Only time will tell how the economy, once touted as part of the fastest growing, will bounce back to life.
Joseph Akable with that news desk report. We also have a report looking at vulnerable groups. We'll bring you that shortly. But let me welcome my guests to the conversation, and all of them are joining us via Zoom because as we observe social distancing necessitated by the spread of coronavirus, this has become really necessary and really the new norm. I have Homaji, who is interim chairman of the Ghana National Education Campaign. Joseph, I beg your pardon, Joseph Achu Homaji is the interim chairman Ghana National Education Campaign Coalition. Mr. Homaji, thank you for your time this afternoon. Good afternoon. I think you are muted, so if you will unmute, then I can hear you. But let me also introduce CECILIA SENOO from Non-State Actors for Health and Development and Executive Director for Hope for Future Generations. Madam SENOO, good afternoon to you. Okay. I do have Dr. Joseph Obeng, is the National President of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA. That's the umbrella body of Ghanaian traders. Doc, thank you for your time this afternoon as well. Okay. I'm going to start with Mr. Homaji. Mr. Homaji, thank you very much for your time once again. So, what really are the areas of interest to you? I'd like for you to think of this for me whilst I come back to you for that answer. Let me bring in this soundbite. Yesterday, Deputy Health Minister Dr. Bernard Okoboy was in Parliament and he was addressing concerns relating to the challenges brought on all of us by the coronavirus pandemic. Listen.
The claim that government had refused to pay contact tracers also qualifies as an inaccurate narration, composed to create the impression that contact tracing has been abandoned. As a speaker for the records, the Ghana Health Service recruited volunteers who were about 2,000 in number during the 3 weeks of lockdown to help trace and test the 30,000 plus travelers who entered Ghana before the airports were closed. The assignment for these volunteers was to last for the period of the lockdown. After the lockdown was lifted and most of the travelers traced and tested, the Ghana Health Service instructed districts to discontinue their engagement with the contracted contact tracers and revert to the use of their community health nurses for the purposes of contact tracing. These trained outreach staff, who were on government roll and are still on government payroll, took over the task of contact tracing, which they have been doing till date. The contracted provisional contact tracers had a defined assignment within a defined period, and government has indicated its commitment to honoring its part of the bargain. I am happy to mention that 6,000 health workers that were vetted and validated as having been in direct management of confirmed COVID cases have had their 50% basic salary for the month of April hit their accounts.
That's the Deputy Health Minister, Dr. Bernard Okoboy, there. Let me bring the conversation to a start. Mr. Joseph Achuhumaji, thank you once again for your time. So let's focus on education with you, since you're representing the the National Education Campaign Coalition. What are your expectations for tomorrow?
Thank you very much, Madam, and good afternoon to your viewers. Our expectation is that, the COVID has brought a change, a paradigm shift in terms of our lives. This time around, the COVID has changed a lot of things for us. So our expectation of area will be in education. Now you notice that the traditional learning in the classroom has gotten a different dimension. That is e-learning programs now. So I will expect the budget to cover that area of e-learning to the extent that the government will put a lot of money into the buying of laptops and tablets for school children, because now we want to encourage e-learning. Now you see some of the schools are doing even their examination online. So this is the dimension education has taken now. And I think the budget must focus on that area and cater for the needs of e-learning of the children. So that when the government buy laptops, tablets for children in the rural areas, we're also talking about training of the children, even the teachers. The teachers must also be trained in that area so that they'll be computer literate and be able to help the children, because we have to embark on the e-learning program now for the children. That's one area. The other area is...
If I would just engage you briefly on this first area that you've mentioned. You talk about rural, assessing people who are in the rural areas. That's a big problem, because first of all, we don't seem to have the internet connectivity across the board, especially in rural areas where we can reach out to these children. And then you talk about provision of laptops and tablets for the children across the country, and then training of teachers. Should all of these go together, or do you think there's a particular one that must come first, and why?
Well, since this is just a review budget, because this is not the actual budget, so you don't put too much burden on it for now. Okay. But progressively, I think that should be the case. But for now, as we are asking, if you ask me, I would suggest that the laptops and the tablets should be bought first.
Okay.
Because if you don't get it, how do you do the training? So when we get them for the children, then the training can follow. In that order.
With your experience in education, is this realistic? I mean, in education in Ghana, is it realistic for government to be able to, supply tablets or laptops across the country to the thousands of children?
Well, yeah, I will. You see, but this project has been there ever since. That's why the various governments have promised that they will provide students with laptops and the tablets for learning, and COVID has just created that awareness now the more, because it has never been there. Previous governments have been discussing it, that we should provide laptops and tablets for Ghanaian children so that we can enhance their ICT skills. And now it is obvious that we need it. So I will not say everything should be done one day, but it's a gradual process. We should start from somewhere. Even right now, like I said earlier, some schools are doing online learning, online examinations. So it's just a matter of enhancing it and expanding it gradually.
All right.
Because that's where globally the focus is now.
Okay, brilliant point you make there, Mr. Omaji. Let me bring in CECILIA SENOO. CECILIA SENOO represents the health sector for us. She is, representing non-state actors of health and development. She's also executive director for Hope for Future Generations. Madam SENOO, thank you for your time. So for you in the health, from the health perspective, what are the key issues? What matters to you most?
Okay. Thank you very much. Good afternoon and good afternoon to your listeners. Yes, for us at the health sector, and for that matter, civil society, we are looking at stronger health systems and health services to the vulnerable in society, especially women, children, and young people, where access to services will be closer to them. I will talk about children because of immunization. I think COVID has taken over a lot of our health issues, and the focus by everybody is looking at COVID. But other health problems are suffering. You know, malaria is rising. HIV, people are not able to go for their drugs, and those who are even going, we just got to know that there is a potential shortage of ARV. We don't have test kits to test for HIV. And so we are looking at the government, looking at areas that are also very important.
Can you pinpoint some of these areas? I mean, I know you work in most of these deprived communities. So the key issues regarding health in your area of operation will be what?
Yes. Thank you very much. We looking at where we are coming from as civil society. You know, pregnant women are also vulnerable and they are most affected.
Right.
And because everybody, the frontline workers, everybody is focusing on COVID, antenatal, postnatal, and care of children is happening. That's what I'm trying to say, that our attention has been shifted. And if we have more health workers who are at home, I would expect that there should be adequate resources to employ more health workers, more midwives, who will focus attention on women and children, and also look at preventive health, so that all our attention shouldn't just be on COVID.
Okay, and that's great.
Yes,
Is there a specific intervention that you want to hear from the finance minister tomorrow when he goes to Parliament to present this, to do the mid-year review?
Yes, we are the civil society, non-state actors. We want to hear more on plans that the government will put in place to respond to the needs of the vulnerable people in society. Okay. I mentioned them already: women, young people, people living with HIV, and also to cushion them when it comes to their medication, their nutrition, and also invest more into preventive health. We want the government to come out clearly on partnership with communities in addressing health. We also want to hear a lot of resources going into health and monitored, not just going under health, because we are looking at stronger health systems, and also more resources to the lower level, you know, the sub-national level, not only national level, so that the vulnerable in society who are not at the national level can also benefit and have that stronger health system that we are all looking at.
Okay, I'll come back to you so we can wrap up our conversation. By the way, I was supposed to be joined by Dr. Joseph Obeng, who will be representing, the National Union of Traders Association for us in this conversation. He's not joined us yet. I'm going back to you, Mr. Omaji, and I want you to, you were mentioning a second issue. You've talked about the the digitization of education, which is one of the things that the minister spoke about in that interview that we played earlier. He talked about the sort of infrastructure, infrastructure that will support education, health, etc. What was your second point, Mr. Omaji?
Yeah, thank you very much. My second point will be classroom infrastructure. Not necessarily for this particular review, budget review, but progressively as we are moving ahead, because we are told the COVID has come to stay for a while, maybe 2-3 years' time. So there is the need now, because we are talking, one of the protocols we have to observe strictly is social distancing. So we are thinking that moving forward, this budget, this review, and the subsequent budgets should cater for expansion of classroom facilities, and for that matter, dormitories for the senior highs, and even the universities, so that we can practice and strictly observe the social distancing in the classrooms and the dormitories. So the second point I'm making is that the serious attention must be given to construction of classrooms, dormitories, etc., etc. And then even the toilet facilities, urinal, etc., etc., so that the children can observe the social distancing and serious health hygienic protocols in the schools, so that we can protect the children from contracting this disease.
Okay,
so that would be my second point.
Right, and so expansion of school facilities and sanitation is the point that you make. I just go around to with my very final set of questions to you. Madam SENOO, are you still there?
I am, please.
Right. So I know that you work a lot with young people. What comes up in the conversations that you have with them? Do they have expectations at all in times like these?
Yes.
What do they share with you? What kind of, what do they say are their expectations? For example, when it comes to listening to the finance minister with a whole lot of words, what are their thoughts when you engage them?
Thank you very much. The many young people that we work with as civil society organizations are expecting the government to invest in creating jobs for them, because many of them have finished and they are at home. They are still depending on their parents. And you know, the expectation of young people who are also part of the citizens of Ghana must be met. And so many of them are at home. And again, we are working with a lot of young people living with HIV and a lot of young people infected with TB. I think currently we are facing a potential shortage of ARV. So there's a lot of fear and panic because, you know, it's antiretroviral drug is a life-saving drug for them. Today, a meeting that we had with them, many of them are afraid that the shortage will affect their health and they might die. I think this is something they are looking at, that the government should invest in their health, to invest in the commodities that are life-saving to them as young people, unfortunately infected with HIV. They are also expecting the government to meet their needs as young people and vulnerable in society, including young people who are also disabled. And so tomorrow we want to hear something that will cushion and support the life-saving drugs of persons living with HIV and TB in society, and for the government to meet its co-financing to ensure that essential commodities for health are available at all levels, especially the lower level and sub-national level.
Very well. I'm sure that by tomorrow we'll be able to get through to you so we can assess your level of satisfaction with what you hear as against what you've just said. But Mr. Omaji, let me take your final words on that.
My final word would be that on behalf of my coalition, we want to wish all the students who are taking the exam, the final year students who are taking the exams currently, the SHS 3s. We wish them well in the examination. We are praying that the good Lord will sustain them and take them through successfully. They should discipline and not get involved in any financial examination practices. We are also asking the school guidance and counseling coordinators in the schools to be counseling the children during this time of COVID. Because as it is now, sometimes there may be some anxiety on the part of the children. So we are asking guidance and counseling coordinators.
Looks like Mr. Omaji froze all up on me, but his point has been very well noted. He's interested in digitizing our education, as the minister said, but he's looking at provision of laptops and tablets for our students across the country. Is looking at reaching the hard-to-reach areas with internet accessibility, expansion in our school infrastructure, as well as sanitation. Those are the areas of concern for him. We also heard from CECILIA, SENOO, who was representing non-state actors for health and development. She's also the executive director for the Hope for Future Generation. Meanwhile, Mr. Joseph Achuhomaji, who we just lost, is the interim chairman for the Ghana National Education Campaign Coalition. So, what is the atmosphere? What is the mood like in Parliament? I'm taking you right there, right now. Joseph Opoku-Gakpo is our man on the ground for us. He's joining me via Zoom. Hi, Joseph.
Okay. Hello, Gifty. Can you hear me?
I do hear you. I see you. I hope this will be smooth. So tell us, what's been happening in Parliament? Less than 24 hours to that budget review. What's happening? And then whilst you tell us what's happening, we understand that not all members of Parliament will be able to attend tomorrow's budget review.
Well, that's the announcement that Professor Michael Quay, the Speaker of Parliament, delivered earlier today to MPs, indicating that tomorrow morning it will be on first come, first served basis, because there will be a situation where the chamber will not be allowed to fill to capacity. They will ensure that there is an empty seat in between every spot where a member of Parliament sits. The indication then being that instead of the 275, well below half of that will be the number of MPs who will be present. And he's been indicating that for those who are unable to find space in the chamber, maybe because they would come in a little late, then they would have to probably go to the offices and watch on television and monitor proceedings. So even the members of Parliament themselves, some of them may not have the opportunity to really participate in watching Ken Ofori-Atta deliver the media budget review statement. And he's also been indicating that the public gallery here in Parliament will be available. They are not allowing visitors to come in. He specifically makes the point that they will not even allow individuals and members of the public to mass up around the premises of Parliament, even as the statement is delivered. And anyone who wants to see how proceedings are unfolding should just sit at home and watch. And so for the MPs who may not be able to get space within the chamber itself, they may have space in the public gallery up there to monitor proceedings. And even when it comes to the press, there's been a limitation on the number of journalists who will be present to watch proceedings unfold, and that figure is being pegged at 25. That's the list of journalists who will be in and around the presence of Parliament to watch proceedings unfold. And the Speaker makes the point that all this is in furtherance of very strict protocols having to do with COVID-19 to protect themselves as MPs and also to protect whoever their constituents are that they would get into contact with subsequently. And let me tell you something else that I've picked from the grapevine. There's been communication from Parliament to the presidency indicating that, usually when the budget statement is being read, ministers and ministers of state who are not members of Parliament will usually come around and sit in Parliament and watch the finance minister deliver the budget statement and all. That communication has actually gone out from the legislature to the executive that for ministers and chief executives of various state agencies who are not members of Parliament, the presidency is being asked to communicate to them that they will not be welcome here in Parliament tomorrow, apart from MPs themselves who may be ministers and all. So looks like COVID-19 related protocols are being taken very seriously. We wait to see how things will unfold eventually when at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, sitting resumes.
Interesting, Joseph, but I'm wondering how would the selection, what will be the criteria for selection of, for example, an MP to be in the chamber? Is it by first come, first served basis, also for the media?
With regards to the parliamentarians, it's actually on first come, first served basis. So whoever shows up early enough, right from maybe around 9:45 when the chamber opens, will then get the space to be able to sit in, and then those who come later wouldn't have the space. But what we know for certain is that when it comes to the leadership, the majority leader, the minority leader, the whips, the deputy leaders, they would obviously be given some special accord, as well as the deputy speakers, so that their spaces are reserved. But apart from them, anyone else who shows up on time is the one who will be given the space in order to get in, while the others will be asked to stay out. On the media bits, it's generated a bit of conversation right here in Parliament. Communication has gone out to the parliamentary press corps, the leadership of the parliamentary press corps, to actually compile a list of 25 journalists who will be allowed within the space to actually observe proceedings and food right here in Parliament. And it's based on that those journalists will be allowed in. All others would probably have to monitor on JoyNews and see how things are.
I know. I was just going to say that. Not just the media, not just the press corps, but everybody else across the country who cannot be there, including the members of Parliament. They don't have a problem at all. All they have to do is to just be glued.
The action will be live here, so everyone else can monitor the.
By all means, Joseph. Thank you. Apart from that, is there anything pressing that we should know from Parliament? Otherwise, that's it from me.
So let me just quickly mention that Parliament has begun the processes to amend the Births and Deaths Registry Act 1965 with a new act, that's the Births and Deaths Registry Bill 2020, which will allow for a better integration of data from the Births and Deaths Registry with other national databases like the National Identification Authority, the Passport Office database, and a number of others. And also, the minority is kicking against a document that government has laid in Parliament to actually amend the Minerals Development Act because they think the establishment of a special purpose vehicle will be out of place. And Dr. Bernard Okoboy, the Deputy Health Minister, has been giving details on how Zipline, that very controversial company, has been helping Ghana with the COVID-19 fight, including delivering more than 2,000 samples of COVID-19 suspected patients to the Noguchi Memorial Institute. So that's been unfolding here in Parliament today as well.
Interesting. If we are able to digitize, the identification system is one of the things that people have said will help us a great deal. Joseph, thank you.
Thanks, Gifty.
Joseph Opoku Gakpo is our parliamentary affairs correspondent. So now you know, we're all set for the minister tomorrow, and we'll be here live on JoyNews. We'll be here to bring you all of it as it unfolds from beginning to end. Here on The Pulse, I'm taking a quick break. I'll be right back. Welcome back. It's good to have you back. Now, there's a worrying trend of how road traffic crashes involving motorcycles have killed 440 and injured 2,080 commuters in the first half of 2020. The figures from the Motor Traffic and Transport Department, MTTD, indicates that motorcycle crashes recorded a 12.98% increase between January and June this year. There is more in this News Desk report.
According to the Motor Traffic and Transport Department of the Ghana Police Service, there's been 2,553 motorcycle crashes in Ghana between January and June. 2,080 were injured and 440 people were killed. The crashes show a 12.98% increase within the same period last year.
Everyone is against Okada. But the thing is, if it's a motor accident, it's not only motors that get accident normally in Accra here. You have been seeing cars too having accident, and depending on what, on the driver or the rider. Because if you are careful, I don't think you will get an accident. It's your roughness that will bring the accident. But the most aspect is the drivers. Most of them are the drivers, the car drivers, especially the taxi and then the Uber drivers. Yeah, because it's like we are having that kind of we are having some problem together that I don't know, they envy us. So anytime we are in the middle going, or even you blow horn, but you see him, he's trying to turn his steer to you, even not to overtake you, just to cross you. You see, so that's why. Normally, you'll be hearing that Okada riders, they've been breaking a cars. It's not like if I'm in the middle person, you are trying to block me, I'm giving you horn about 5 times, and you are not. Meaning you want to kill me. So I'll do whatever I can do, then I'll pass by.
So what do you think?
Okay. With the cost of the accident, is like most of the drivers don't take their time for us on the distance because they have in mind that riders are not to use road. So, like, they need to take their time for us. And also, most of the motor riders too don't take their time doing riding. So it's also the cost of accidents. So I think if the government can come in and then make a law so that we, the motor riders too, we can make use the road appropriately.
Actually, what will prevent the accident is they should try and repair the traffic lights, those who are spoiled. They should try and repair them back. And then as we riders too, some of us too, my advice to the riders, they have to be careful. You understand? They have to be careful with the riding. And then the car owners too, especially the taxi drivers, they have to be very, very careful too. Because sometimes too, it's not only the motor riders. The taxi drivers too, they are also riding careless. So my prayer is that everybody drive safely.
But will everybody ride safely? Let's have a conversation, see how people on the streets riding motorbikes think and how our national program seeks to address that. Joining us for that conversation via Zoom is Daniel Waku, who is the Deputy Director, Planning and Programs at the National Road Safety Authority. Mr. Waku, good afternoon to you. I think you're muted. If you'll unmute, we can continue the conversation. Great. So with this latest statistic, what does the National Road Safety Authority make of it?
Thank you very much. It's a disturbing news or statistics. These are human lives we are talking about. These are fellow Ghanaians we are talking about. These are people who could be your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, or our relatives. So it's very disturbing. And as a body, with the mandate to organize and coordinate activities as far as road safety is concerned, and now that we have even attained our authority status, it's a news that should worry the National Road Safety Authority, and we are really much worried. In fact, if you want the statistics for the first half of the year, almost all the other indices, like the number of cases, the number of commercial vehicles, the number of private vehicles that are involved, the number of total vehicles that are even involved, the number of pedestrian knockdowns, the number of people killed, and the number of persons injured, they've all seen negative reductions as against last year. It's only in the case of motorcycles that we have seen a huge increase, that as much as 12%, almost 13% increment against last year.
And I want to find out, have you figured out, because I'm sure that these statistics are already available to you, have you figured out why?
I think that with the advent of the COVID-19 and its lockdown situation, or its the slowdown in economic activities and human movement, vehicle movement, I think that a lot of it's a new area that we are observing is deliveries by motorcycles.
Right.
People are no longer moving out, but they can be in the comfort of their zones and order for food, for groceries, for other materials.
Practically everything you can order.
Practically everything now. That's a new development that is going on nationally, even globally. So that could be a reason. Also, if you observe, because of the lockdown and the restrictions as that came with the COVID-19, the National Road Safety Authority was also not able to go out to undertake their usual outreach programs, educational programs, engagement programs with these people. So that could also be a factor. But most importantly, it's a human factor, and that I'll place under the feet of the motor riders themselves. there is a rule, a law that governs the use of the road. If you watch, we are all witnesses to the fact that it's as if the motor riders in this country, especially those of us in the southern zone, it's as if the traffic lights are not for them. They never stop at the traffic lights. We are all witnesses to it, which is wrong in the first place. We are supposed to be law-abiding citizens. We must comply. We must be compliant to the laws of this land. This law is not a law that was passed by the National Road Safety Authority, but it was passed by the Parliament of Ghana. And therefore, we must also come to this law and observe it.
So I just want to find out,
one area.
Okay, please go ahead.
That's just one area of it. Now, secondly, listening to the explanation being given by one of the respondents on earlier on the show, he said when they are trying to overtake the vehicle, when they are trying to move in the middle of the road and all that, the Uber drivers and the taxi drivers don't give them way and they block them and all that. The position of the motor rider on the road is not the middle of the road. That is not where they are supposed to ride. They are supposed to ride in the middle of the lane in which you are moving. You are supposed to ride just like a vehicle is positioned in the middle of the lane. That's what they are supposed to do. It's only when they have to overtake a vehicle or a slower moving vehicle, that's when they have to maneuver just like any other vehicle.
Yeah.
But you see, a number of these riders are not licensed. So they do not have any formal education, any formal training as far as riding motorcycles is concerned. It is an area currently that is not regulated. It is an area even which is outlawed. So anybody that even gets money and is able to buy a motorbike learns how to move the motorbike.
So I just want us to focus on diagnosing the problem, and then we get the solution. Then we call it a day on this conversation. So first of all, you kept saying that, it could be. So you talk about the deliveries, and you say that could be a reason for the number of crashes we're seeing. You talk about human nature. You talk about the inability for your people, for example, to go out with your outreach programs and education programs, and then the licensing regime. Is there a scientific work that the National Road Safety Commission or Authority has done or intends to do to give you exactly what the cause or what the root of the problem is? That's my last but one question, and I have a final one for you when you're done with that.
Currently, there's no scientific study that has been conducted by the National Road Safety Authority. It's something that we are considering a number of studies, and this is one of them, but we have not yet commenced a study into the causes of motorcycle crashes and fatalities or other casualties. It's something that is on our table that we are going to consider very soon, maybe towards the latter part of the year and all that. Because
in that case,
so we must have an in-depth study into what actually is the case.
I understand. In that case, is there a plan to deal with these concerns that you have, or this list that you have just given me as the root cause for the crashes, the increase, about 12 or 13% increase in crashes, motorcycle crashes that we've seen?
On the part of the National Road Safety Authority, we are all aware that road safety is a multi-sectorial area. The National Road Safety Authority is the one in charge of road safety education and all that. DVLA is in charge of the registration and then the licensing of the riders, and the police are the ones in charge of the enforcement of the laws. So my appeal is to all these stakeholders to be able to deliver on their side of the obligation of our mandate. The National Road Safety Authority is gradually coming back into the landscape where with our educational and our sensitization programs. we are gradually coming back onto the road safety landscape. We are using the medium of the media. We are using minimal one-on-one interaction because we still have the COVID-19 scare around us. So these are some of the measures that we are taking place. But with the attainment of the authority status, very soon we are going to be issuing compliance notices to some of these institutions that provide services as far as road safety is concerned, or that are supposed to provide input into the provision of road safety in the country. If we are able to scientifically or verify that they are not providing their side of the bargain, the National Road Safety Authority has the authority now, the mandate now, to take them on and provide compliance notices for them to comply with what their mandate allows them to do.
I sincerely hope that talking to people from the National Road Safety Authority every now and then here on this show and on our other platforms will also be a part of the solution to the problem. Mr. Thank you very much for your time.
Because we want to use this medium to educate the general public also.
Right, hopefully.
For example, as today I said, the position of the motorcycle is not the middle line.
Yeah.
When they are riding, it's supposed to be in the middle of the lane in which you are moving.
Okay, that's education for me as well. So thank you very much for that. Daniel Waku is the Deputy Director, Planning and Programs, National Road Safety Authority. Now, he is a doctor whose COVID-19 test results delayed after a patient he was treating died of the virus. The doctor, whose identity we want to protect, says his test results, which returned positive, delayed. He fears the possibility of infecting other patients he came into contact with because he did not know his status and had to still carry out his normal duties. His situation mirrors what many others are facing now, delays in their test results. Maxwell Agbagba has more in this report.
Just because my patient was positive, I should have self-isolated. But you remember, I didn't get this communication from any official channel that...
Voice of the health worker narrating how his test results delayed days after his sample was taken following the death of a patient he was treating.
Guilty that if I didn't come to work, my colleagues would think I'm putting all the work on them. Some of the doctors involved in the care, as far as I know, didn't go to test. I volunteered and went and tested, only to find out 3 weeks later that I was positive.
So during that 15-day period, what were you doing? Were you going to work?
I came to work. I came to work regularly. You know, I did consultation.
You actually treated patients?
Sorry?
Did you treat patients?
Yeah, I touched patients. I treated patients because I sanitized, but I talked to patients. I examined patients. I did ward rounds. And only God knows if and how many patients I might have infected, unknowingly infected.
He wants health authorities to expedite action on the testing of samples, especially for health workers.
The solution to the problem is obvious. First of all, the turnaround for the test should be to come within hours, at most a day or two of testing somebody. The results, we should have the results. As it is, turnaround time is going as long as 3 weeks or more.
Backlog of samples delay testing results. Hence, the Ghana Health Service has changed its testing strategies in line with cases being recorded. Speaking at a press conference at the Information Ministry, Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Patrick Abuaji, stated, with Ghana's backlog of 23,000, the country will now focus and prioritize the testing of persons who are showing symptoms of COVID-19, contacts of confirmed COVID-19 cases, exposed health workers, students, and returnees.
Currently, we have on the average about 23,000 samples that are part of the backlog. But the issue is that a sample that is released 2 weeks after sample is taken has very little public health and clinical relevance. In order not to perpetuate further backlog, we are currently going to focus on symptomatic cases. That is those who come in who are sick, who suspected cases of COVID will be given priority in terms of testing. We are going to look at that. We will focus also on the contacts of the confirmed cases. Anybody who is positive will prioritize their contacts. Thirdly, exposed health workers and students will be given priority in our tests. Returnees will also be given priority so that we can also ensure that they are safe when they arrive. We test them and then before they are discharged.
A virologist, Dr. Michael Owusu of the Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research, is optimistic this new strategy is the best way to deal with the current trend of infections.
If you have sick people who go to the health facilities and need emergency tests for doctors to manage them, and you have voluntary people who are not sick, workers who want to just go and get themselves tested, which one will be your priority? If you channel your resources to voluntary testing and mass testing of people who are not sick and are healthy, and then we run out of resources, and people who are critically ill are admitted to the facilities, they are going to lose their lives.
A coronavirus vaccine, that's what the whole world is waiting for at this moment, as almost 15 million people worldwide have been infected by the novel coronavirus. 2 studies have shown positive results in the search for that vaccine. Today, in our crossover to Germany, we focus on the search for a vaccine, as one we're told could even be ready for use as early as the end of this year. Emmanuel Chase is correspondent with our partners DW. She's joining me all the way from Germany. Emmanuel, it's good to see you. Let's begin with what we know about that potential vaccine.
Well, Gifty, 2 studies have shown positive results, with one being currently developed by Oxford University in the United Kingdom, which could be made available by the end of this year, just like you said. This vaccine has already been licensed by regulators, and there has been a strong antibody and T-cell immune response in the early stage clinical trials that were conducted on 1,000 people in the UK. And there's also another study, a separate trial similar to that was conducted by the University of Oxford, that was conducted this time in China on 500 people, and most of those people have developed a very strong antibody immune response.
That sounds interesting, and so it looks like there is hope, but it also comes with a caution.
Exactly. There's very cautious optimism there. The leader of the Oxford project, Sarah Gilbert, said that there is absolutely no certainty as to whether or not the vaccine could be made available as early as the end of this year. That's what everyone is hoping for. But this will depend on further tests proving its effectiveness. We'll also need to see whether or not it will be feasible, it will be possible to produce it at a large scale. And there will also be the need, I talked about a license that has been granted, but there will also have to be a license for emergency use, and that will be decided by regulator. Also, the director of the World Health Organization's Health Emergency Program, Mike Ryan, said that of course this was very good news, but there was still a long way to go. He also highlighted the fact that there's a need for a large-scale trial worldwide.
Well, here in Ghana, I know that there have been attempts to look into this. Some work has gone on, but I know also that Germany laboratories have been credited with progresses in the race to find a vaccine. Where does research stand now in Germany?
Well, German laboratories have been at the forefront of the research for a vaccine ever since the beginning of the pandemic. And the firm BioNTech has revealed that there were promising results in clinical trials with a T-cell immune response in those trials. And the German laboratory revealed that they have concluded a first delivery agreement with the US company Pfizer. It's not an agreement with the US government, nor does it entail exclusive rights for the US markets. And BioNTech also signed an agreement with Brazil to further test the vaccine against COVID-19. Also, according to a German researcher, Stefan Kaufmann, who actually in the 90s had developed an anti-tuberculosis vaccine, there could also be a link between tuberculosis vaccine and a vaccine for COVID-19. So a lot of promising developments here on the vaccine front coming from Germany.
Well, to be cautious is just like you're saying, promising development, that also comes with a caution. But it does excite me. I don't know if the German people or other European people around you, I mean, what sort of response has this received? excitement?
Well, of course, I mean, 15 million people, almost 15 million people have been infected worldwide, so everyone is really hoping for a vaccine. And since German laboratories have been really working for it ever since the beginning of the pandemic, everybody here hopes for a positive development. So those are all good news, of course, to take with caution, but it gives some hope, and it's also very welcome at a time where, you know, everybody here in Europe and worldwide, of course, have been completely shaken, completely worn out by the pandemic. So those types of news, even if they're still uncertain, well, they're cheering up the mood here, I would say.
Even if it's uncertain, it certainly gives some hope. Emmanuel, thank you for today. Emmanuel Chase is correspondent with our partners, DW. She joined me all the way from Germany here on The Pulse in our usual weekly crossover to that country. Time certainly does fly, doesn't it? This is where I draw the curtain on my part, but there's more news, if you will, at myjoyonline.com. Well, Akufo-Addo to embark on first foreign trip after border closure. Interesting story for your read. And of course, there's an update on the investigation. Investigator in Ofankor Tenan-Meda case ordered to appear in court. You want to click on that story and share with your friends as well. Scroll all the way down on that page. We have our YouTube link there. We can see some of our videos and our programs from here. Of course, Hawa Kumsin is on there as NDC calls for her arrest. Take a look at those stories and share with your friends. My name is Gifty Andopia. It's always a pleasure to come your way. We'll do this again tomorrow, shall we?